There's a door somewhere inside you. You've felt it before. Maybe in a quiet moment when everyone around you was asleep and something in the silence felt like it was waiting. Maybe in a dream you could not fully remember, but that left a feeling you carried with you for days. Maybe in that moment when you stood at the edge of a decision you were not ready to make and felt something on the other side of it pulling you forward. Something you could not name and could not explain and could not ignore. You've been standing in front of that door for a very long time. You are not alone in this. Carl Jung believed that every human being carries inside them an unopened door, a threshold they have approached and retreated from more times than they can count, a gateway to the part of themselves that is the most real, the most honest, and the most terrifying thing they will ever encounter. He called it the confrontation with the unconscious, and he said that almost no one willingly walks through that door. Today, that changes. Today, you are going to choose one ancient sacred gateway from 5. And that single honest choice is going to reveal exactly which door your unconscious mind has been afraid to open and what is waiting for you on the other side. Carl Jung was not a man who dealt in surface things. He was born in Switzerland in 1875 and spent the first decades of his life asking questions that most people were too frightened to ask. Questions about what lies beneath the part of us we can see and explain and present to the world. Questions about what drives our decisions when logic cannot account for them. Questions about the invisible architecture of a human soul. He began his career studying with Sigmund Freud. Freud believed he had found a successor, but Jung could not stop where Freud stopped. His mind kept going deeper, kept pushing past the boundaries of what was comfortable and provable and professionally safe. And the thing that arrested him most, the thing he returned to again and again across 4 decades of clinical work, was the threshold. Jung noticed something that should have been impossible. Patients from completely different countries, different cultures, different languages, different centuries of recorded history. All of them produce the same image from the depths of their unconscious minds. The gateway, the door, the archway standing alone in an open field. The entrance to a place they had never been but somehow already knew. A woman in Zurich dreamed of standing before a great stone arch that led into darkness. A man in India described the same arch in his visions. Ancient Egyptians built their entire theology around a gateway between this world and the next. The Japanese placed sacred Torii gates at the boundary between the ordinary and the divine. The Celts believed that certain stone doorways were thin places, points where the veil between worlds was so delicate that a single honest step could carry you through. These people had no contact with each other, no shared language, no shared religion, no shared history, and yet they all produced the same symbol from the same depths of the unconscious mind. Jung had only one explanation for this, and it changed everything. He called it the collective unconscious. Jung said that beneath your personal unconscious, beneath all your individual memories and wounds and desires and fears, there's a deeper layer, a layer that does not belong to you personally, a layer that belongs to every human being who has ever lived on this earth. It is an ancient, vast reservoir of shared human experience, shared human wisdom, shared human symbols that we are all born already carrying inside us. You did not learn these symbols. You did not inherit them from your parents. You cannot find them in any book because they existed before books existed. They are built into you at a level so deep that your conscious mind cannot access them directly. They can only be accessed through one thing, instinct, that quiet pull you feel towards certain things without being able to explain why. That recognition you experience when you see something for the first time, but feel as though you have always known it. That is the collective unconscious speaking. That is an intelligence older than your name, older than your language, older than your civilization, reaching up through everything you've been taught and touching something that was always already there. And Jung gave a name to the symbols that appear most powerfully across the shared human unconscious. He called them archetypes, primordial images so ancient and so universal that they predate every religion, every culture, every civilization on earth. They are the original language of the soul. They do not require translation. They require only honesty. The gateway is one of the oldest and most powerful archetypes in the entire Jungian framework. It represents the threshold between who you have been and who you are becoming, between the self you show the world and the self you have been afraid to let the world see, between your conscious life and everything the unconscious has been quietly holding for you until you were ready to receive it. The gateway you choose today is not going to tell you who you are. It is going to tell you which door you have been afraid to open. And it is going to tell you exactly what is waiting on the other side. In a moment, I am going to describe 5 ancient sacred gateways to you. Each one comes from a different civilization. Each one has been considered sacred for thousands of years. Each one carries a specific Jungian meaning connected to a different hidden dimension of the unconscious self. I want you to listen carefully as I describe each one. Picture it clearly in your mind. Feel the presence of it, and then let your instincts speak. Do not think about which one sounds most impressive. Do not choose the one you think reveals the best version of yourself. Do not analyze. Do not calculate. Feel and trust what you feel completely, because your first instinct is not random. It is the most intelligent response you will give in this entire video. It is your unconscious mind speaking in the only language it has ever known. Here are your 5 ancient sacred gateways. Gateway 1, the Japanese Torii Gate. Picture a great vermilion gate standing at the edge of water. It rises from the surface of a lake at high tide, its 2 great pillars disappearing into a shallow sea that reflects the sky perfectly. It is made of ancient wood, lacquered a deep burning red that has faded in places to a soft rose. Above the pillars, 2 horizontal beams stretch outward at each end, curving slightly upward at the tips as if reaching for something just above the visible world. There is nothing behind this gate but open water and open sky. And yet something about it makes you feel that what lies beyond it is not the same world you are standing in now. The Torii marks the boundary between the ordinary and the sacred. It does not lock. It does not guard. It simply stands at the threshold and waits for you to decide whether you are ready to cross. Gateway 2, the Babylonian Ishtar Gate. Picture a gate that is almost unimaginable in its intensity. Standing 15 meters high, faced entirely in glazed brick of a blue so deep and so saturated it appears to generate its own light, running across its surface in horizontal rows. Hundreds of them, each one precise and deliberate, are golden animals. The dragon, the bull, symbols of Ishtar, goddess of love and war, and of Marduk, god of creation and sovereignty. You have to tilt your head back to see the top of this gate. You can feel it before you reach it, a pressure in the air, a warmth that has nothing to do with temperature. This is a gate that does not ask permission. It announces, it declares, it says that what lies beyond is not for the faint of heart, but it is exactly where the brave were always meant to go. Gateway 3, the Egyptian Temple Pylon. Picture 2 enormous towers of sand-colored stone rising from the desert floor. They are perfectly symmetrical, the same height, the same width, the same angle against the sky, as if the world itself was balanced on a line they create between them. Between these towers is a narrow entrance, shadowed and dark even at midday. The walls of the towers are carved from floor to lintel with hieroglyphs and images so dense and so intricate that you could spend a lifetime reading them and never reach the end. The ancient Egyptians called this gateway the horizon of heaven, the meeting point between the world of the living and the world of what lies beyond living. Pharaohs passed through this gate on their way to eternal judgment. Priests passed through it on their way to commune with the divine. Both understood something most people have forgotten, that the most important journeys always begin with a single step through a narrow and uncertain door. Gateway 4, the Celtic stone doorway. Picture a doorway standing alone in a field at the edge of the known world. 3 great slabs of ancient gray stone, 2 vertical, 1 horizontal, placed by hands that predate every written language, every recorded belief system, every civilization we have a name for. Around the base of the stones, the grass grows differently, slightly greener, slightly taller, as if the ground itself knows this place is not ordinary. The air around the doorway is still even when the wind is moving everywhere else. You cannot see what is on the other side, not because it is dark, but because looking through it feels like looking at something your eyes are not quite built to process yet. The Celts believed that certain stone doorways were thin places, points where the boundary between this world and the next was so fragile that the truth of what you could pass through in both directions. What you see on the other side of this doorway is exactly what you have been most afraid to face, and exactly what would free you if you could only bring yourself to look. Gateway 5, the Stonehenge Trilithon. Picture 3 stones at the center of everything. 2 great sarsen pillars standing in the midst of an early morning, connected at the top by a lintel stone so heavy it required an intelligence and a devotion we have never fully been able to account for. The surrounding monument is ancient beyond our ability to fully comprehend. Built over thousands of years by people who understood something about the movement of the sky that we are only now beginning to reconstruct. The Trilithon frames nothing. There is no wall behind it, no building, no city, only open moorland and the slow movement of light across the horizon. But looking through it at certain times of year, when the sun aligns perfectly with the stones, something happens to the light. It bends. It changes quality. The shadow it casts falls in a direction that shadow should not fall. Standing before this Trilithon, you understand for the first time that a gateway does not need to lead somewhere else. Sometimes a gateway simply reveals what was always directly in front of you, in a light you had never before been able to see it in. Take a moment. You felt something with one of those gateways. A pull, a recognition. Something that said yes before your thinking mind had a chance to intervene. Hold on to that. Now stay with me. Because what your choice reveals about your unconscious mind is going to be one of the most honest things you have ever allowed yourself to hear. The Japanese Torii gate. You chose the Torii gate. And what that choice reveals about your unconscious mind is this. You are standing at the precise boundary between 2 versions of your life, and you have been standing there for longer than you know. The Torii in Jungian psychology is the archetype of the threshold guardian. The awareness that you have arrived at the border of something new, but have not yet allowed yourself to cross. Jung called this moment the call of individuation. It is the point at which the self becomes aware that the life it has been living is no longer the full expression of what it is. Something more is possible, something truer, something that requires you to leave behind the version of yourself that has been safe and legible and comfortable, and step into the version of yourself that has always existed in potential but has never been permitted to fully emerge. The Torii stands in water because what lies beyond it cannot be reached by the ordinary mind. It requires you to enter a different medium, to move through something that does not support you the way solid ground does. This is what your unconscious is asking of you right now. Not to throw your life away, not to abandon everything you have built, but to be willing, truly willing, to walk to the boundary between who you have been and who you are becoming, even though the ground on the other side is not yet visible. What lies beyond your Torii is not unknown. Your unconscious mind already knows exactly what is there. It has been showing you glimpses of it in your quietest moments, in the dreams you remember only partially, in the longings you dismiss as unrealistic, in the version of yourself to becoming your most honest and least performed moments. That version of yourself is not a fantasy. It is the truth your unconscious has been holding for you until you were ready to cross the threshold and claim it. The Torii does not lock. It does not require a key. It requires only the willingness to step forward. And the fact that you chose it today suggests that willingness is closer to the surface than you have been allowing yourself to believe. The Babylonian Ishtar gate. You chose the Ishtar gate. And what that choice reveals about your unconscious mind is this. There's a power inside you that you have been managing rather than allowing, and that management is costing you more than you have ever calculated the price. The Ishtar gate in Jungian psychology is connected to what Jung called the self. Not the ego, not the personality or construct of the world, but the deepest and most integrated version of who you actually are. The Ishtar gate is not a gate that asks permission. It does not wait. It announces. It declares that what lies beyond it is extraordinary, and that the person who passes through it must be willing to be seen as extraordinary, which is something that is far more frightening than it sounds. The particular unconscious truth your choice reveals is this. You've been taught, somewhere along the line, that your full power is too much for the people around you, too much for the room, too much of the version of the world you currently inhabit. And so you have learned to make yourself smaller, more manageable, more palatable. You have put a dial on the thing inside you that is genuinely exceptional and turn it down to a level that other people find comfortable. But the Ishtar gate is entirely covered in golden animals, the dragon, the bull, the lion, symbols of what Jung called the instinctual self, the part of the human being that knows its own strength and does not apologize for it. Your unconscious chose this gate not because you're already living at that scale, but because something inside you is tired. Tired of the dial. Tired of the management. Tired of arriving at the edge of your own power and retreating before anyone notices how far the edge actually extends. The door you've been afraid to open is not failure. You have opened that door before, and you know how to handle it. The door you've been afraid to open is the door to your own full scale. What is waiting on the other side is not chaos. It is the version of your life that becomes possible when you finally stop pretending that the extraordinary is not already inside you. The Egyptian temple pylon. You chose the Egyptian pylon. And what that choice reveals about your unconscious mind is this. You are carrying a weight of unprocessed truth about your past, about your choices, about who you have been, and you've been carrying it so long that you have begun to mistake the weight for who you are. The Egyptian pylon was called the horizon of heaven. It was the threshold between the world of ordinary human experience and the world of divine judgment. Not judgment from an angry God, but the far more terrifying kind of judgment that comes when you stand in honest silence before the complete truth of your own life. In ancient Egyptian belief, the soul that passed through this gateway was weighed, not condemned, not punished, simply seen completely, honestly, without the protection of narrative or self-explanation, or the carefully constructed stories we tell about why we did what we did and why we are who we are. Jung would recognize this immediately. He spent 4 decades studying the shadow, the parts of the self that we find unacceptable and therefore push into the unconscious, where they do not disappear but grow, accumulate weight, and exert an invisible pressure on every decision we make. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the parts of you that you have decided are not permitted, and the pylon in your choice today is your unconscious telling you that the weight you are carrying is not character. It is unexplored shadow. What lies beyond this gateway is integration, not perfection. Jung never believed in perfection. He believed in wholeness, which is an entirely different thing. Wholeness means making peace with the parts of yourself you have judged and exiled. It means allowing the complete truth of who you have been to coexist with the complete truth of who you are becoming. It means walking to the pylon of your own honest self-knowledge without flinching from what you find inscribed on walls. The ancient Egyptians built their most important knowledge into the architecture of the threshold itself. Everything you need to understand about yourself is already inscribed in you. The unconscious has been maintaining those records faithfully. All you are being asked to do is walk through the gateway and read them. The Celtic stone doorway. You chose the Celtic stone doorway. And what that choice reveals about your unconscious mind is this. You are far more attuned to something invisible than the life you are currently living allows you to be. And the gap between your inner life and your outer life has become a source of quiet, persistent grief that you rarely speak about because you do not know how to explain it to anyone who has never felt it themselves. The Celtic thin place is a specific and precise concept. It is the idea that certain locations, certain moments, certain experiences are thin, meaning the veil between the visible world and the deeper reality beneath it is so fragile as to be nearly transparent. People who have experienced thin places describe them consistently. An expansion of awareness, a sudden sense that what is visible is only the smallest surface of what is real, a feeling that they are standing at the edge of something vast and ancient and deeply familiar, as if they have been there before, as if some part of them never left. Your unconscious chose this gateway because you know this feeling. You have had these moments. And the particular wound your choice reveals is this. You have spent a significant amount of your life in environments that could not hold these experiences. Environments that responded to your inner life with confusion or dismissal or silence that was its own kind of answer. And so you learned to close the aperture, to experience the thin places privately and incompletely, and with a kind of grief at their edges that comes from not being able to share them with anyone who might understand. Jung would say that what you are describing is not eccentricity, and it is not pathology. He would say that you are simply someone in whom the connection to the collective unconscious is unusually close to the surface. The dreams that stay with you, the symbols that follow you, the sense of meaning that arrives in unexpected places, and then disappears before you can fully grasp it. These are not anomalies. They are data. They are your unconscious doing exactly what it is designed to do, pointing toward the deeper layer of what is real. What lies beyond the Celtic doorway is not another world. It is this world, seen at full depth, what your unconscious is asking you to open, the door you've been afraid to walk through, is a permission to live at the full depth of your own perception without apology and without diminishment. The grief you have been carrying is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you have been living at a fraction of your actual range. And something inside you has been standing at this doorway long enough. The Stonehenge Trilithon. You chose the Stonehenge Trilithon. And what that choice reveals about your unconscious mind is this. You have been searching for a framework that is large enough to hold everything you actually are, and you have not found it yet, not because it does not exist, but because you have been looking for it in the wrong direction. The Stonehenge Trilithon does not lead somewhere else. This is what makes it unlike every other gateway in this video. It frames what is already here. It takes the ordinary landscape, the gray moorland, the low clouds, the unremarkable field, and by creating a threshold within it, it transforms how that landscape is seen. The light that passes through the Trilithon is the same light that is everywhere, but something about passing through that stone frame changes its quality, changes what is visible, reveals an alignment, a precision, a mathematical relationship between this place and the movement of the entire sky that was invisible without the frame. This is the door your unconscious is asking you to open, not the door to somewhere else, not the door to a different life, a different self, a different set of circumstances. The door to seeing with complete clarity the extraordinary thing that is already present in what you've been treating as ordinary. Jung described this as a process of finding meaning, not constructing meaning. He was clear about this distinction, but finding the meaning that is already inherent in experience, waiting to be seen by anyone with a framework large enough to perceive it. The people who built Stonehenge understood something that most modern minds have forgotten, that the greatest human achievement is not to create something from nothing, but to align yourself with something that was already moving before you arrived, and to build your life at the point where that movement becomes visible. Your unconscious chose the Trilithon because the search you've been on for coherence, for alignment, for a framework that can hold the full complexity of what you are, is real. It is not escapism. It is the most serious work a human being can do. What lies beyond this gateway is not a destination. It is a way of seeing. And the fact that you have been searching for it means that on some level, you have always already known it was there. Jung wrote something once that I want to leave you with. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The gateway you chose today is not a verdict. It is not a final answer. It is not a category or a type or a label. It is something much simpler and much more important than any of those things. It is a direction. Your unconscious mind has been trying to show you this direction for a very long time. In the quiet moments, in the dreams, in the inexplicable pull you feel towards certain things and certain people and certain ideas that you cannot always justify to the logical part of your mind. It has been patient with you. It has been waiting. It has been placing the same gateways in your path with the quiet persistence of something that knows it has more time than you do. But you do not have unlimited time. That is the one thing the unconscious cannot give you. More time to make the crossing. You have to make it yourself. You have to decide that the door you have been standing in front of is worth opening. That what is on the other side is worth walking toward. That the version of yourself waiting at the threshold of your own unexamined life deserves to finally be met. The gateway is there. It has always been there. The only question the unconscious is asking you, the only question it has ever been asking you, is whether you are ready to step through. Tell me in the comments which gateway chose you, and what did you feel the moment you saw it?